Well, good morning, everybody. How are you doing? We've made it through another week, and we've arrived here at the weekend. Breathing a sigh of relief, ready to crash a little bit and have some fun, right? Now the fun's going to start. Well, I guess we're going to find out. You're listening to the Repcolite Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore. And as for fun, here's what I've got planned for the show today. You decide if it's going to be fun. And spoiler alert, it's going to be. All right, here's what I've got. At the end, I'm going to be talking about a popular design trend, two-toned walls. It's gaining traction around here. It's been around for a while, but we're seeing more and more of it being used around here. And I'm going to cover 4 reasons why you might want to try it in your home. I'm also going to have Jeff Roush from East End Plumbing in the studio, and we'll be talking about drain cleaning. It's a more cost-effective solution than replacing clogged lines. We'll get to all of that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about something that I learned a couple years ago, and I'm sure, absolutely 100% certain that I'm late to the party here. I'm sure this is completely ridiculous to even talk about, but that's okay. It's still going to make my point. See, I learned a couple years ago or so that cutting vegetables or whatever with a really sharp kitchen knife doesn't need to be a bloodbath. See, previously, the state of things in my home was this. If I went to prepare a meal, and if that preparation required, cutting up an onion, let's say, if that was all on the docket for the dinner plans, Hannah would usually meet me in the kitchen with a box of Band-Aids. I'd go to work on that onion or whatever with good intentions. I'd always tell myself, I'm going to be careful this time. I'm going to go slowly. I'm going to be mindful of what I'm doing. I'm going to stay in this. I'm in it to win it, right? I tell myself all of that stuff as I chop the onion up every single time. But no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, I'd always draw blood, sometimes a lot. It was inevitable. And I figured, really, at the end of the day, I figured I was just an idiot. I had no other answers here. It's a kitchen knife. You're chopping up an onion. You can't do it. You're an idiot. That's what I figured. Well, then one of the kids finally took pity on me and said I needed to use the claw. The claw. And that intrigued me. I'm a gadget person. And I figured this was something new. This was something cool. But no, it's just a technique. Apparently, there's a way to hold a vegetable when cutting it. There's a proper form. So this kid, I think it was Andrew, made me sit down and watch this YouTube video of some guy showing me how to hold an onion with this grip that he was calling the claw. And once I figured that out, how to hold my fingers and what to do with them, I've only needed one single trip to the Band-Aid box since then, in over a year. That's a miracle in my house. So yeah, turns out technique makes a difference, even with something as mundane and basic as chopping up vegetables with a knife. So that brings me to the pain point. I think all of that, everything I just said, that technique makes a difference thing applies to masking tape as well. There's a right way to use it. And I think with masking tape, it seems so mundane. What is there to know? You put it down, you paint, and then you peel it off. The thing is, with the right approach, you're going to get cleaner lines and fewer frustrations. So with that in mind, here are some quick masking tape tips. First off, choose the right tape. Tapes aren't one size fits all. For example, frog tape. It's not just a fancy brand of tape that's a bit more expensive than others. It's actually different from other tapes. It's got a special paint block technology that seals edges and prevents paint from bleeding underneath it. And that makes it great for getting sharp lines. Delicate surface tape is another kind of tape that's specifically made for taping off recently painted surfaces or even wallpaper. So don't just grab masking tape. Grab the right masking tape for your project. That's first. Second, surface prep is important even when you're taping. Dirt, dust, moisture, all of those things prevent tape from sticking well. Obviously. So make sure that if you're going to tape off your trim or whatever, wipe those surfaces clean with a damp cloth, and then make sure you give them time to dry before trying to get the tape on them. It'll drive you nuts if you try to rush it. Third thing, don't work from the roll as you're putting the tape on. Instead, use manageable tape lengths. Apply tape in roughly, 3-foot sections, whatever your little arms will reach, and use those smaller sections and overlap the ends slightly. And that's going to make it easier to remove as one single piece later. Fourth, it's critical that you press the edges firmly down after you've applied it. So run a dull putty knife along the edge to seal it, and that prevents paint from being able to bleed under that edge. And as we're talking about this, be sure to use a putty knife or a painter's 5-in-1 tool to do that sealing. Your finger alone isn't going to be enough to keep paint from seeping underneath it. So make sure you seal the edges. Finally, fifth thing, remove the tape at the right time. For the cleanest line and the easiest removal, you've got to get the tape off before the paint has a chance to dry. So while the paint is tacky but not fully dry, pull that tape off at a 45-degree angle to avoid tearing or peeling the paint. Just be careful when you're doing that to make sure that the paint that's on, the tape, make sure that that doesn't end up getting all over some surface that's going to make you sad or get you into trouble. It's entirely possible, so keep an eye on that. Speaking of tape, before I wrap this one up, we do have a sale going on at Repcolite for our 1.5-inch painter's masking tape. It's $5.50 a roll, which is about a $2.25 savings per roll, and it's going on till the end of November, so stop by and stock up. All right, that's enough of that. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I'll be chatting with Jeff Roush about how drain cleaning can save you some time and money. Stick around. And we're back. You're listening to the Repcolite Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore. And right now, I'm in the studio with Jeff Roush, General Manager at Grand Bay Electric and East End Plumbing. Jeff, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you've been on just a few weeks ago, and we talked about that. But if people don't listen every single week, there's a handful that don't. We're working on them. But still, not everybody hears us every week. The General Manager of two different companies, electric and plumbing. Help me understand that. And on top of it, you guys are connected to Ayers Basement Systems as well. So kind of like this trifecta.
Absolutely.
Help us understand that a little bit. I know you explained it once before, but one more time.
Yeah, so Ayers Basement Systems has been around for a long time, specializing in waterproofing and foundation repair. They're based out of Lansing, Michigan, but they service the entirety of Michigan. So a lot of their projects involved subcontracting electrical and plumbing companies to help them with their projects. And you can imagine, working all over the state, they'd have to basically go out of their way to try to find different electrical and plumbing contractors to, subcontract to help them with these projects. And it got to be a little bit chaotic, right? I mean,
just trying to run that.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it was a whole logistical effort.
Yeah,
exactly. So, a few years ago, back in 2020, the CEO decided to acquire Grand Bay Electric and East End Plumbing and add them under the umbrella of Ayers. Two, previously full-service, standalone plumbing and electric companies with no relation. Acquired them both, brought them under the same roof, so we're all under the same management. We're all able to come together and provide that turnkey solution to our customers.
All the same people?
Absolutely.
Or at least most of them?
Yeah, yep.
Really, really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. All right, I want to talk about drain cleaning and its importance, all right? So drain cleaning and its importance on a Saturday or Sunday morning, depending on when and where you catch this. What's the difference between drain clearing and drain cleaning? Are they interchangeable terms? I thought they were, but I know they're not.
They are exclusive in its own way. So clearing is more, think about clearing as kind of just removing a blockage. Poking a hole in it is usually what the solution is for that, using a hand auger. Whereas cleaning is going that extra step, right? Not only poking a hole in it and getting rid of that blockage, but then cleaning the entire drain in its entirety, most of the time with the use of a hydrojetter.
All right. So why, I guess maybe I'm dumb, and maybe that's no surprise to anybody listening, but I don't know that I've heard of drain cleaning. I love cleaning. I love clean things. So I know that this term would have jumped out at me because, when I moved into the house, those drains were slow drains, and they weren't slow because of me. So that was other people's stuff in there. Mm-hmm. Whatever that was.
Yeah.
Whatever that was.
Exactly.
It was there.
You never know.
And I didn't want to mess with it. So if I could have thought of the idea of cleaning out these drains, I would have been all over that. Is this something that's common? Is this an important thing for us to know? Or is it only important as homeowners when we run into an issue?
It is very important. Really, when it comes to drain cleaning, proactivity is the name of the game. You don't want to get to the point where you're reacting to a clogged drain because that is hectic.
Oh, it's gross, too.
It is gross.
Depressing.
Absolutely. And it can really put a damper on your day. So, yeah, the idea with drain cleaning is really that proactivity. And you got to think what we're cleaning out of there. You might be wondering, what is in my drain that needs to be cleaned, right? I thought water just goes down there. Well, there can be a lot of different things actually that come up. Tree roots are a big cause. So tree roots can actually penetrate your line where maybe your city plumbing connects to your home plumbing. If there's a break in the line anywhere, tree roots can start to infect that line and even start to spread and essentially fill that entire drain line with roots, which can form a very severe blockage. Now, if that gets severe enough, you might be looking at digging up that entire line and having it fully replaced, right? But that's if you let it get that bad.
That's
right?
what I did.
Oh, no.
I let it get that bad. I think
no.
I just moved in and that's how it was.
Okay.
But I remember we went downstairs one evening, one dark, sad evening in our lives, and the basement was full of water, but not the good kind of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty gross, pretty terrible.
I can imagine.
And so, so the drains can be clogged with anything.
Anything. And, we see tree roots a lot. There's a lot of grease buildup, especially in restaurants. But even in your kitchen sink, you could, if you pour any amount of grease down there after you cook some ground beef or bacon or anything like that, right? Definitely don't put grease down your drains. Eggshells are a common cause there as well. They can get broken down and they don't really flush down the drains very easily. You're also talking about some things that are non-flushables when it comes to toilets and things like that. You could be talking toys. You could be talking baby wipes or sometimes even diapers or, feminine care products. All of that stuff can contribute. And it's not just one over the other, right? If you're constantly putting all of those things down your drain, that problem becomes exponential.
All right. So when we're talking drain cleaning, are we talking exclusively or largely like the main lines out of my house? Like where I had all the roots was my main line. I had to have a new sewer line put in. But then you mentioned pouring grease down the sink.
Yes.
I mean, that's
when I say
sections.
drain, I mean any kind of drain.
All right.
Yep.
So you will work on any of these
Anything.
things.
We're talking kitchen sinks, bathroom sinks, toilets, your main drain, clean outs.
All of them could be clean as a whistle.
Yes.
If you wanted them
exactly.
to be. You could eat off of those drains.
Yep.
You said it's a proactive thing. It's something we need to be on top of or should be. How often should homeowners consider getting their drains cleaned? Even if we're not noticing a major problem, should we get them cleaned?
Yeah. Yes, the answer is
That's not just throwing money away.
No, it is not. No. And what we can do, too, before we even get to the cleaning element is we can come in and we offer camera inspections. So we would go ahead and we'd throw a line down there. We have a nifty little monitor that you can see on our end and actually watch with us as we snake that line with our camera tool. And you'll be able to see every little thing in there. It's got a little light on there, too, so you'll be able to identify.
Really cool, really fun. We photograph all of our big events, right? Marriages, things like that.
Yeah. You might as well hang a picture of your drain in your kitchen. Yeah, no worries.
So, no, we had that done, and we could see exactly all what the roots were doing.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to watch that system.
Yeah.
So you could do all that. But you're saying that's definitely something we should think about doing. Is there, what if our drains aren't even slow? How do we know when the right time is it? How often are we doing this? Yeah,
so I would at the bare minimum recommend at least once per year, okay? But depending on how many people are in your home, how many drains you have, that kind of stuff, all of that can contribute to, maybe a more frequent service plan.
All right, so what if I'm on, I just want to understand. So at my old house, when I had the tree roots, about every year, we knew we had to get somebody out there too, and I don't think they weren't drain cleaning them. They were
probably just poking a hole
in it, running that through. And I assumed making it pristine and amazingly clean inside. But chances are they just popped a little hole in there.
Yeah, that is a common misconception on a lot of drain cleaning companies is they go out there and they sell drain cleaning as their service. What they're really doing is selling drain clearing. They're taking a hand auger, they're poking a little tiny hole about the size of a penny through whatever blockage is there. And what that is you're just putting a Band-Aid over it, right?
That's what I did for a long time.
Yeah, and that's why you have that recurring issue where every year, right, it's probably like clockwork. You're like, I got to go check my floor drain in the basement because chances are it's back flooding again. And it's almost like clockwork, right? But if you were to come in there and we could stick one of our hydrojetters down there, we could blast those tree roots out of there permanently, and you would never have that problem again. Now, you would still want to have a yearly maintenance just to make sure that every time we go down there, we get any residuals, right, out of the way. But once you do that jetter one time, that entire line becomes completely open and clear, free-flowing for a long, long time.
I'm in the studio with Jeff Roush from Grand Bay Electric and East End Plumbing, which is what makes this conversation make sense. We're talking about drain cleaning. We're talking about how that should be done potentially every year. That's what Jeff's recommending here. What I wanted to get to is previously I had a line that was infected with tree roots. Mm-hmm. I've got new stuff now. I'm in a new place. Yeah. Tree roots are not an issue for me. Is that still a yearly thing? You're still thinking that's a yearly thing?
It may not be a yearly drain cleaning that's required, but again, that's why we offer that camera inspection. So if you have any doubts in your mind, if you have one sink that's maybe draining slowly or a toilet that's not draining completely when you flush, if you have smells, coming from your drains, or you hear gurgling and things, that's usually because there's some type of a blockage in the way.
I just wish you'd stop talking about that because all of those things I experience in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's the drain. It's the bane of my existence. All right. So I get it. I should look into that. I've got questions about it, but we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
Can clogged drains lead to more serious plumbing issues other than just the water backing up? That's serious enough. But is there any other concerns that could happen? Other
Absolutely.
damage? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I don't mean to scare you, Dan.
No to some of this stuff.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is we keep going back to these tree roots because they are a very severe problem. If you have an infection of tree roots that's so severe, you could be potentially looking at uprooting that entire pipeline, getting it excavated and then replaced. And that can be multi-thousands of dollars worth of work, right? Whereas being proactive, allowing us to come out, put a camera down there, if we notice anything, allowing us to clean that for you will avoid that potential headache in the future completely.
Now, I like I said, I had to put a whole new line in. It was 20 years ago, 18 years ago, it was $6,000.
Yeah.
Did not enjoy that, but I loved flushing the toilet and all of those things afterwards, running the sink, draining the bathtub, because we knew we were good at that point, and it was so good to be done with that. Yeah. I did not know about this possibility. Maybe it didn't exist back then. Did this exist back then? Drain cleaning 18 years ago? Hydrojetting?
I'm not sure if that equipment was around.
Let's say no.
Yeah, let's say no.
And we don't know. We don't want to be fact-checked. I'm just going to figure that I did the best I could. But you just said a few minutes ago that if you hydrojetted my line with tree roots, that I wouldn't get them back. They wouldn't continue to grow, or they would continue to grow, and my yearly maintenance is going to eliminate new growth that comes through.
Yeah, so tree roots usually come from some type of an obstruction in the line, and what I mean by that is if there's a separation or if there's a puncture or something like that, that will allow tree roots to come through to begin with, right? Now, we can, of course, fix that, okay, but that would involve excavating. The idea behind drain cleaning is that you don't even need to necessarily address a very small puncture or an offset pipeline like that because we're going to go in and we're going to clear that out and it's going to be permanent. But you will need a yearly service, right, to make sure that all of those tree roots get flushed out every single year.
Makes perfect sense. Well, Jeff, I'm looking at the clock. I'm wondering if we should probably take a break and then finish this conversation on the other side. Can you wait with me for just a few minutes?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be back in just a minute with Jeff Roush from Grand Bay Electric and East End Plumbing, talking about drain cleaning. That's all coming up next. Stick around. And we're back. You're listening to the Repcolite Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore. And I'm still in the studio, with Jeff Roush from East End Plumbing and Grand Bay Electric. And we're talking about drain cleaning. We started this conversation in the last segment, got through a fair chunk of it, but there's more to do. And I want to do that on this side. And I guess to get us started, Jeff, in the last segment, you mentioned, some different drain cleaning tools and technologies, hydrojetting, the different cameras that you use, stuff like that. I wonder if you would just talk about the whole process. What does that look like? And how is the process of drain cleaning different from other things that could be done to open up our drains?
Absolutely. I'll tie this back to kind of the difference between drain clearing and cleaning, right?
Perfect.
So when we're talking drain clearing, the most common used tool there is going to be a hand auger, so otherwise known as like a drain snake. So you may find them at your big box stores, right, in your community. We would highly recommend not buying one from a big box store. A common misconception there is that they're available for homeowners to use on their own, but they're not the most effective tool, right? The hand augers that we use come with specialized bits that will fit in the drains that we're servicing in your home. So the ones that you may buy at a big box store, they're not going to have custom fit solutions for those bits. There's kind of just a one size fit all.
Sure.
And you can really run into situations and risk getting that stuck in your line, depending on what kind of drain you're attempting to clear. And if that gets stuck, now you're in a problem, right?
That sounds like how I would do it.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Saturday that I would live through.
Well, you got to give us a call then.
Yeah, we'll have to if that happens. So you do have those. What does the hydrojetting look like?
Yeah, so that's where drain cleaning comes into play. So the hydrojetter is called the Spartan Urban Warrior, okay?
Wow.
So yeah, this piece of equipment is the end-all be-all for drain cleaning. Usually, before we use that equipment, we will use our hand auger, and we'll poke a hole in there. And the reason for that is because we want that hole there so we can then take our camera, put that down the line, and show you what type of a blockage you're up against.
Sure.
Right? So the first step to drain cleaning is always clearing the blockage, right? Removing that blockage. Once that blockage is removed, we stick that camera down there. Now you can see what you're up against. Then we bust out the jetter, and whatever you just saw on that camera monitor is going to be gone lickety-split. No problem.
Okay. Do I run the risk of the jetter damaging anything with the
Not
high
at all.
pressure water?
No, nope. So again, those comes with specialized bits that would fit in your drain, right? They're not one size fit all. So we're never going to put a bit that's too large, right, into your drain. But on top of that, it's really just highly pressurized water. So we take our time. Our drain experts have been doing this for 5+ years apiece. They've got hundreds, if not thousands, of these projects under their belt. What it comes down to is experience, expertise, and skill, right? So we have never damaged a line with a hydrojetter before. That's just not what the equipment does.
All right, perfect. What about, well, I know the answer to this, but just because it's good to know. We just had a plumber on, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. All time runs together, but we talked about chemical drain cleaners. You don't have to go long on this. How do you feel about those and the risks they may or may not pose to a plumbing system?
Yeah, I would say, just to summarize that, they're just ineffective. They're not as effective as even an auger or a hydrojetter, right? You got to think, let's take, a product like Drano, for instance. If not used correctly, that will actually solidify if it's left in the system. And if it's not rinsed thoroughly, it can actually corrode your line, right? It can even cause chemical reactions, right, within whatever's mixed down there, right? You maybe add some Drano to the equation, and now you're cooking with some chemicals, right? So
I've never thought about that.
Yeah, you got to be very mindful.
Certainly don't want that.
You don't, no. So yeah, I would say, again, when it comes to those chemical drain cleaners, they're more of a Band-Aid.
All right, nope, makes perfect sense. Let's talk about DIY. You've talked about some of this, but DIY versus professional drain cleaning. I guess I'm curious, what are some common mistakes homeowners make when trying to clean their drains themselves? Now, one of them you mentioned, we get the snake.
Yep.
And I've done that. It's a one size fits all.
Yep. Yeah, one size fits all.
That's not always the best.
It's not always the best, and you do run a very high risk of getting that stuck in there, and then you're talking about getting that unstuck, right? Which is not a pleasant process, right? And it can be costly.
Any other common mistakes you run into? Or is that really the main one that people...
That's pretty much it. I mean, my suggestion for you is if you're up against a drain clearing problem and you don't know what to do, at the most, I would attempt to plunge it. And if you can't get anywhere after plunging for 15, 20 minutes, then I would call it quits and rely on a professional to handle that for you, because that's going to be a little bit over your head to begin with.
It's just like one of those movies where they're doing the CPR and, we did the paddles for 15 minutes.
Exactly.
No, you put the tarp over your sink and you just call it good and call a professional in
Exactly.
at that point.
Exactly.
No, all of these things are no fun, because even when you have success, it doesn't feel like winning. You're plunging your sink and all that clean water that you just had is now black, and there's other floaties, and you're having success.
Yep.
Maybe.
But
you're just completely immersed in this filth water. Sometimes I end up just moving whatever is there into a more secure position.
Yeah,
is
right.
what it feels like. It used to be a slow drain.
Yeah.
Now it's not doing anything.
Yep.
I have had success with the little snake thing.
Okay.
And normally I am so grossed out at the beginning of my process. But I become one with the filth at some point. And I just become really curious about what is this?
Yeah.
Is this a dead rat? Or is this just a hairball? Not sure. And I'll poke and prod.
Right.
Everybody runs away because it's really gross. How about success stories?
Yeah.
Let's end with that. Everybody loves one. Do you have any good success stories about this drain cleaning business stuff?
Yeah. One that stands out to me, and because drain cleaning is kind of a niche service, not a lot of companies offer it, and yet alone do they offer it correctly. We run into a lot of situations where customers call us after they've been given a quote from another company to replace their entire line, right? Mm-hmm. So they call us with this fear, and they're almost like kind of doing they're just dotting their I's, crossing their T's, trying to get a second opinion, right? So
it's called a last-ditch effort.
It's called a last. You're exactly
money.
right. So this quote and to replace a line like that, it can be expensive. It could be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, right? So that alone is a lot to swallow. So they call us out for a second opinion, and one that stands out to me was we went to a customer's home once where their floor drain in their basement was backing up, and they were concerned. They had a quote for $17,000 for a company to come out, excavate their entire front yard, rip up their existing cast iron, and install new piping, right? They were scared to death of that. They didn't want to move forward. They called us out for a camera inspection. We put our camera down there, and yes, we did find tree roots, and it was infected. It was bad, right? But after our thorough inspection, we drew up our diagram, okay? We poked a hole in it using our hand auger. We stuck the camera down there and again, showed the customer the tree roots, and right after that, they approved us to throw the jetter down there within 2 hours. We had that drain completely cleared, and we threw the camera back down there afterwards, and the customer was just ecstatic. They were shocked because they had just seen tree roots, I would say 3 inches thick around the entire wall of the pipe, now completely obliterated and moved completely out of the drain, which was a fraction of the cost of having us, of having a different company rather, excavate their entire front yard and replace that pipe for them.
Oh, man, yeah. And just the peace of mind that goes with that, because once, the water backs up, once you have one of those issues, and I made a comment at the beginning that I had the really gross water in the basement. I didn't. I was lucky. Because really, it was just the kids had, every time the kids would drain the bath is when we would notice it. The bath drain, that's when once a year we just get all this bath water in the basement. Just drove me nuts, though. And the peace of mind when I put new in.
Yeah.
But being able to not have paid as much as we did to get there would have been great. And just knowing that I can drain my tub and not worry about it.
Absolutely.
Flush the toilet, drain the sink, and all of that. Really, really interesting. If our listeners do want to reach out, talk to you about that, maybe they want to talk to you about the whole house generator thing or anything else that you do at any of the places that you work, Grand Bay Electric, East End Plumbing, Ayers Basement Systems. If they have any questions about any of this, how's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, so if you're looking for some drain cleaning, absolutely give us a call at East End Plumbing. You can call us at 616-457-8678 or find us online at our website at geteastend.com. If you'd like to reach out for a generator estimate or any electrical service at all, you can contact us at Grand Bay Electric by giving us a call at 616-662-0364 or reaching us online at our website, grandbayelectric.com.
And you guys cover the whole state?
The entire state.
The entire state of Michigan. If you have any questions, reach out. Jeff Roush, General Manager of Grand Bay Electric and East End Plumbing. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Dan.
Now, all right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about 4 reasons why you might want to try two-toned walls in your home. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll fill you in on the other side. Stick around. Welcome back. You're listening to the Repcolite Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore. And for this last segment, I want to talk about two-toned walls. Two-toned walls. If you're not familiar, they're kind of like the accent wall's cooler little brother. And accent walls, if you remember, years back, they were a big deal. You know, if you were cool, if you were anybody, you had an accent wall and you talked about it. Wherever you went and you had an opportunity, you told people, well, I do have an accent wall. And they were always impressed. It was that big way back then. But the idea was you pick one single wall, a focal wall, and you give it a bold or, otherwise visually compelling color. And then that transforms your space, your room, right? Take that idea, fast forward to today, and what we're seeing is kind of a twist on that with two-tone walls. And instead of painting one entire wall a solid accent color, what we're seeing people do is take a couple of different colors and then split them on either one wall, or they'll wrap the whole room. But they'll create a horizontal line that divides the wall, and they'll put one color on the lower section, let's say. They'll put a second color on the upper section. They'll run that horizontally around the room, and there you go. There's your two-tone wall. It can be vertical as well. They can divide the walls or the room vertically. There are a number of different ways to do it, but that's the general idea behind two-tone walls. Now, with that in mind, let's dig into 4 reasons why you might want to try two-toned walls in your home. And let's start with this one. Two-toned walls give you a really great way to bring drama and color into a space without overwhelming the room. And I'm talking about the good kind of drama. Not the, he's looking at me, or he laughed at me, or somebody ate my something. Not that kind of drama, the good kind of drama. The drama that makes people say, oh my goodness, there's a lot of drama in this room and it's good drama. That's what you're trying to create. You can do that easily with two-toned walls, and you can do it without overwhelming the space. You can use a color with a lot of power, really, in your space, but since it's only on part of the wall, and because it's usually balanced by a second color that tones things down a little bit, you can bring that color in with less concern that it's going to freak out or completely overwhelm the space or your family. As a full accent wall, that color might be too much, too dark, too heavy, too bold, whatever. But on just half the wall, it might be just right. It might be the Goldilocks zone there. It might be just right? Like her porridge. I think that's called the Goldilocks zone, something like that. If not, who cares? I'm just going to keep going. On top of that, kind of as a bonus, having that color on only half of the wall, I think that actually increases its visual impact because it's unexpected. Yes, there's less of it, but it's so completely unexpected. It catches our eye more than I think an accent wall would. It creates a pattern and a contrast, and it becomes an actual feature of the space even more than just a solid color would have done as an accent wall. So two-tone walls, a powerful way to bring energy and good drama into a room. That's one reason to give it a try. Second reason, two-tone walls, they're very aesthetic. There's a lot of aesthetic qualities to them, but they also can be functional. They're a fantastic way to highlight or hide certain architectural elements that, maybe you want to show off or hide. I don't know. I just keep rambling in circles. When I was growing up, let me try to make the case here for hiding certain architectural elements or features. When I was growing up, and this is not a great example, it's the best I've got. You're just going to have to ride with me. But when I was growing up, we had a lower level space had a cast iron stove in there, and it wasn't our favorite element in that area. It was not the cool kind of stove. It was extremely utilitarian. Now, with a situation like that, painting a gray horizontal stripe behind it, behind that stove on that wall, or even around the whole room, however, doing that and then setting that band, that line at the height of the stove would have blended the stove away. It would have toned down its visual impact significantly. It wouldn't have just stood out to us. It wouldn't have jumped off of, out of its little corner and kind of beat us over the head with its presence. It would have kind of faded away just because we had that band around the room. Here's another example, probably a better one. Picture a room that's basically a central hub in a home, a space just off the entry. Make it a big space. Put in a number of doors leading to multiple areas. We talked about this exact room months ago on the show here when Haley was still here. She had visited this house and she was trying to give them help, to help figure out what color would be right in this space. But picture this space, a lot of different doors. It's visually busy. It's visually cluttered. They've got colors on the walls. You've got all kinds of materials coming together. The doors, they're a color. They're stained, let's say. You've got, like I said, the wall colors. You've got trim colors. Maybe the trim is painted a color different from the walls. It's not a stained wood trim. So you got all that going on. You've got maybe a bookcase, something like that. A ton going on. It's a cluttery kind of area visually. But if you introduce two colors, one for the lower half of the walls in that space and another for the top half, you can really create a sense of flow. Painting a single color around the base of the room and then even bringing that color, this is kind of a crazy idea, but it's a cool idea. Bringing that color across the lower half of the doors and even across and onto the bottom half of the bookcases, anywhere that color would have touched by that straight line, just completely cover that surface with that color. Do that and then take the second color and apply that over the top half of the room and the top half of the door, the top half of the bookcase. Do that and you're going to completely streamline that area. That whole room is going to look much less cluttered, much less visually busy. It's going to be streamlined. I know it sounds probably insane, but if you can't visualize what I'm talking about, go online. Look for pictures of two-toned walls where the color covers the doors, and the trim and the furniture and more. It's a cool look. Check that out. It's kind of like color drenching, really. Color drenching a space. And color drenching is where you paint one color over every surface. It's just like that, only with two colors, right? It can really work to minimize or subtly hide unwanted elements. But on the other hand, two-toned walls, they can also enhance, highlight, or showcase architectural features, furniture, artwork, and more. Things we want to show off. This two-toned thing, two-toned effect on your wall can really help to do that. Take artwork, for example. Imagine some incredibly visual and highbrow piece of art that you've got hanging on a wall. In fact, don't imagine it. If you're in your house, just look. You're right there. You might as well look. Look at that piece of art hanging there in all its glory. Powerful, right? Moving. Now imagine that you've run two colors across your wall or around your room, horizontally. The bottom color is a darker color. The top color is a somewhat lighter color. Colors that would work in your space. All right? Imagine that. Imagine your art centered over the line where those two colors meet. Now, half of it's displayed against the backdrop of one color, and the other half of the artwork is displayed against the backdrop of the second color. Those two background colors and that dividing line behind the art create some really interesting and powerful visuals. You're taking art that already, has power and a voice, because that's art, right? Power and a voice. You're taking that and you're amplifying it by showcasing it against the two different wall colors. There's a lot that you could do with this, a lot to think about with an idea like that. And it doesn't just apply to art. That same concept would apply to furniture or anything else in the room, really. A sofa or a bookshelf along that dividing wall, that'd become an anchor, balancing the two colors and then adding interest to the room in a way that feels intentional and cohesive. All right? That's the second reason to give it a try. A third reason is that these two-toned walls can mimic classic architectural elements like paneling or wainscoting, without any actual wood or molding being used. And I love that. By simply painting the lower half of your wall one color and the upper half another, you're going to get the look of depth and detail. You're going to get this traditional look of wainscoting, paneling, beadboard, whatever you want. And you're going to do that in a modern and sleek manner. There's going to be no extra woodwork on the wall, nothing to install, nothing to remove when you want a different look. It's just paint. Really great way to get that look. So that's the third reason. Last one that I've got. Two-toned walls can help you create an illusion of height and space in a room. For example, a horizontal two-tone line in a hallway or a short room can make it feel longer, kind of draws your eye along the space. Similarly, they can also help the room feel taller when you paint the top half a lighter shade and then carry that color onto the ceiling. That instantly is going to create a vibe of higher ceilings, and it's going to make the room feel more expansive. All right, there's more to say, but I'm sure you get the idea. Two-tone walls, they're a great way to change up a room without a full overhaul. They're versatile, they're eye-catching, and they can be customized really to suit pretty much any style. In future episodes, I'm going to dig into all kinds of different things. Planning two-tone projects, choosing the right tools and techniques. We'll talk about how you get that straight line, that really clean line with your tape. We'll get to all of that. If today's episode has you thinking, scratching your head, wondering maybe I'd like to try this, if that's you, just stop by any Repcolite location. We'd love to help you find the right color combinations and give you all the tips you need to pull off the look in your own home. All right, that's going to do it. That's all the time we've got. If you want to catch this episode again, you can find it online at repcolite.com, or even easier, you can find the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you go to get your podcasts. All right, whatever you do today, make sure paint's a part of it. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I'll see you next week. I'm Dan Hansen. Thanks for listening.